Here, when the world falls in love, every song you hear seems to say, Merry Christmas, may your dreams come true. And the sun.
Oh, you gotta love Christmas Mountain Dew combined with some classic. This is some Harry Connick Jr. We've had a little bit of Apple Radio Christmas theme music going on tonight. Anyway, I figured I'd just jump on live. Got about time for one fly. So I've got Instagram here. I got YouTube live here. So if you guys miss it and want to check it out, it'll be saved on the YouTube forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. At least that's what I think. So we're going to be tying up a stimulator or a sofa pillow. I haven't decided yet. We've got an Ahrex hook in the vise. This is an FW570. It's kind of got a really nice bend to it. It doesn't have the shape like a typical stimulator does, but we can build that shape with the body, depending on how it rides. I've got here, this is some Nature Spirit. This is their deer hair stimulator. The stimulator is a little bit different than the other deer hair. It's a little bit longer. The only thing is I don't use deer hair as often because it's got a little bit more under fur compared to the elk. And so you just got to take a little bit extra time and clean it out. But I'm just going to take off a pretty good sized clump here for the tail and just kind of clean it out just by pulling out most of that under fur. And then I'll grab the very, very tips of the long ones. And we're going to be left with roughly, I don't know, that's that 15, 20 fibers there. And I'm going to put it in the appropriate size deer stacker. I'm just kidding. That's not the right one. I just picked that up this weekend. Pretty stoked about it. I'm going to be doing massive clumps of deer hair. So when you grab your stacker, make sure you grab the base as well. I'm just going to shove it in. You don't need anything fancy. We'll go ahead and just give that the old tap, tap, tap Rooney. Make sure those tips are aligned for the tail. And for my thread, I'm using some Semperfli. This is 12-aught nano silk in orange, just regular orange. It's got a really nice pop color to it. And we're going to be making some stimulators or a sofa pillow. I haven't decided yet. From what I've been asking around and reading about, the main difference between the two comes down to, one, if you have a different color head, two, if you stack the wings versus non-stacking of the wings, and three, on the head, do you space out your hackle versus create an over-hackled head? I guess those are the main differences there between the two. And also that the improved sofa pillow actually would go hackle halfway down the shank, whereas most of us do about a third. So we're going to get started and we're going to tie in our tail. And usually I start here at the rear, but I'm going to try a little different trick, a different technique today. We're going to tie it in up here at the front. And so we're going to have that tail extend out the back. And notice how that's a rough stack. I don't want it to be perfectly aligned. And I'll go ahead and put those on, pinch them, do a nice loose wrap, and then kind of crank down, flare those. And then I'm just going to spiral down with touching wraps all the way down. And notice a little technique. I'm holding, let's zoom in here. I'm holding the hair up at an angle as I'm wrapping down so that it keeps it on the top of the shank. And then as I get back here towards the back, I'm not going to do a crank wrap. I'm just going to loosely work my way back up and then do some cranking wraps. And then we'll flare that. Maybe with this nano silk, we could technically break it off, but we don't want to do that. Okay, so set that aside. So we have our tail in. Now, with most of these, I never really stick to a color pattern or scheme of the way that I tie these in. But for this, we're going to be using This is a pink lemonade hackle in a mid size, and we're going to be ribbing that with kind of a, I guess it's called a sea green wire by Semperfli. If I can get my flush cutters out, they're kind of stuck in the drawer, and that's a kind of a cool little peacock, almost pearl. I don't know what the right word is that besides awesome. I think that's going to give me a good contrasting rib color. And I had some flash here. I can't seem to find where I put it. So I'm kind of thinking what we'll do is we're going to keep the body. This is some of that alpaca dubbing. The cool thing about this dubbing, I got this from the Fly Warrior. And it's alpaca is sustainable because they just shave it and dye it, and then the alpaca, goes on living its days. Whereas with rabbit or squirrel or anything, they're usually skinned, killed, and hopefully they use the whole animal for other things as well. But what we're going to do is we're going to think through this process on the live feed. So we got to think the last material I'm going to need is the wire to counter rib the hackle. And so I'll go ahead and start that on the top of the shank, tie it in with a few loose wraps, and then work my way down the shank. Oops, I pulled too hard on it. I hadn't cranked yet. I thought I had. So we'll just go ahead and crank that down a little bit better this time, and then work our way down on the side of you, because I always do my first wrap towards me. That's just a personal habit. And then you could tie in the next material. I think it would be the hackle. And I'm just going to check the sizing. That one looks about right. I'll go ahead and just pull this feather out. We'll probably use this whole feather if we're going to do a sofa pillow. And you're going to want to make sure you get it aligned the right way. And I want the concave going back. And so I'll tie that in right here at the stem, giving myself a little bit of room to work with. You can see I've got almost a full, maybe a half of a wrap there that I can manipulate that and get it going the right way. What's up, Aloha? Let's grab a little bit of flash just for kicks and giggles, sprucing it up a little bit. I just got some, what is this? Mirage. Oh, this is Pearl. I guess the Mirage has a little bit more of I think a tan hint to it. So I think all colors should be named in terms of 1, 2, 3, 4. 1.2 would be a lighter or darker or something like that. But I don't think I'll ever win that debate. So we'll go ahead and tie that in on my side. And we're going to be wrapping that tinsel through the alpaca dubbing and have it, what's the correct word? Go the same direction as the hackle. All right, so we got our materials tied in now for the rear of this, and I think we're going to now dub this. And this is a little bit of a thicker dubbing. Usually on something like this, you're going to be using a fine dubbing. This is going to be a little bit wispy, and so I'm going to start with a very, very minimal amount. And you can see that this on Nano Silk, if I can get that flash out of the way. I can't find my hair clip. My wife must have stole it again. And we're just going to dub that on pretty tight, but leaving it a little bit loose because I want those fibers to really kind of shine through and come out and make it look even buggier. And so we'll go ahead and get that started now right here at the back with some touching wraps, kind of building this taper as we work our way forward. And we want to still keep it a little bit slender, so I'm going to do this in stages. You could also use a dubbing wax, a no-tack wax. My personal preference, I hate it on my fingers after I've been using it, because then it like ends up in my hair, or I don't know. I hate lotions on my hands. I'd rather crack and bleed with my eczema than put lotion on every day. So personal preference of stupidity, I guess. And so we're just going to continue this, building up that taper as we go. If you notice that you get it a little bit not inconsistent, you can always unwrap this, add a little bit more dubbing, go a little bit tighter on your wraps. but it's kind of you can see I could spend all day just dubbing this body, and I'm kind of not maybe even doing it right. You could do a super, super long noodle, but I just do it in steps of 3 or 4 different applications so that I can regulate that a little bit better. And then notice how I kind of wrap back over itself, kind of an X fashion, to kind of get that real solid and real durable. And that looks pretty killer. So we're going to put this color of, I don't even know what the color is called, the lavender almost. He was really nice, and these colors are just on point. I can't wait to try this out, these greens. But he developed it kind of as a replacement to seal dubbing. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a full wrap right here, kind of at the back, to get a hot spot. And then I will create a segmented body as much as I'm going to hackle this and just rib this up. And I'm wrapping this tinsel pretty aggressively tight, and just creating a pathway for that hackle we're going to be tying or palmering up next. And then we'll go ahead and wrap back over itself to keep that in place. And we're starting our ramp there for what we're going to put our wing on. Oh, I'll flash everything Jameson Bradford says on YouTube. That's my motto. So always add some flash when all else fails. And now I'm going to get we got to make sure we're going the same way as we did our flash. See if we can get this feather aligned. It wanted to twist on me. So this is why I give myself a little bit of room so that I can twist and manipulate this. It's just really hard kind of going around that hook bend to get it to twist the way I want it. Usually in this circumstance, I would definitely recommend going the other way, but I think we're going to have to figure that out because it definitely wants to go that way, because that hook point's really just causing issues for me to wrap around it. Just throw some resin down, right? Yeah, see, that's going the wrong way. Crap. It's not cooperating with me tonight, huh? It's lined up right. Bend those just a little bit. See if we can maybe manipulate it as we twist this around a little bit better. This is why the materials want to go one way, you cooperate with the materials. And I'm trying to force it. There we go. Got it. Now we just got to keep it. Yeah, it didn't want to go. So we'll just figure it out as we work our way up. See how it's going forward instead of backwards? Crap. Maybe we'll make this a naked body and just untie this. Crap, I didn't want it to do that. Oh well, we'll wrap this way then. And just counter rib what we just worked our butts off to do. Oh, that looks so much better. Didn't want to cooperate with me, especially on the live. So we're crisscrossing that. And I guess technically I could untie it all, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, so we wrapped our hackle this way. So now we'll use the wire, counter rivet with the same direction as our flash. And that might actually kind of be of benefit to us. If I can get this one right here. And the way you work this up is just zigzagging it through all this hot mess. And actually this is going to be turning out pretty decent with that lining up with that pearl underneath. feel like a rookie tonight. That hackle wouldn't go the way I wanted, but I'm under hackling this body to kind of make it slim and slender. And I always do a full wrap with the wire just to have it, confidence in it. And then I wrap back over it, kind of a reverse style bucktail. Now it looks pretty killer. Okay, so we got that in. We're not going to do any flashy flash in the wing. We're just going to tie in a really, really super duper heavy wing. So I'm going to grab a clump that's roughly, I don't know, 3 times what we just grabbed for the tail. Same process though, I only want the good stuff. So we're just going to pull out this loose stuff, this shorter stems. I'm going to grab it now almost at the tips. Pull out any of these straggler dagglers. It's up there, Itty Bitty Fish Committee and CY Greenwood. We're just going to use the same hair stacker here. That tail is going to be awesome. Okay, we line these up. Check to see if we got any weird butt ends, which we did. Grab our tweezers, which were here. And you just get in there and find those butt ends with your tweezers, pull those out, put them back in the hair stacker for next time. I'm kidding, I don't do that. Pretty close. There's one that's just really bothering me. I'm going to have to restack these now. See, it will not let me grab it. It's because I'm staring into all these lights. There, got it. Along with everything else. So now our wing's not going to be super big. Give her a little tap, tap, tap-a-rooney. Pull it out. And with most of my stimmies, I usually align those so they go midway into the tail. I'll go ahead and pinch that right there. I'll come over with a loose wrap. On a second wrap, I'll go ahead and pull upwards, do a third wrap, and then I'll kind of cut through the heat of this mess with 2 wraps. I'll pull up again, cut through the heat of half this mess again, and pull up again. So what we did is we just used some of this hair to build up the ramp that we're going to be wanting for this head. And then we'll go ahead and really kind of crank down right here with a bunch of touching wraps and check that out. Boom. Nice splay. We've got it going equally proportioned out to each side. And I know, guys, that pre-trim these, I just cut them out of habit. I've done it this way. I don't know why. Because when you pre-trim it, it's so much easier. I think it's because I like the tedious task of trying to trim all these hairs out without cutting my thread. It's a challenge. Helps to have good scissors, so. You can see how these scissor tips are awesome. These are Frankenflies. I think they're made by Deer Creek for him. Okay, and let's just clean that up a little bit so we don't have to worry about all these space stragglers out and about. Okay. All right, now we're going to really cheat and undersize this and just use that same hackle that we had. And hopefully it cooperates better this time. So I'll go ahead and tie it in on the opposing side just by the stem. Loose wraps, because we're using a pretty fine nano silk. I don't want to be cutting this with these hairs. And then we will solidify this with the dubbing. So we've got kind of a plum. So I'm going to do a yellow for the head. This is alpaca dubbing. Do kind of a hot head, which I guess means we're doing it as a stimulator instead of a sofa pillow. But we can maybe combine them and just over hackle it. I'll make sure I got plenty of dubbing because I want to build up that head pretty good. You can see I'm getting a little risky here by going too much. Last thing you want to do is overdub this head. And so, oh yeah, that's money. Notice how I went back into the hair a little bit more just to hold it more in place. It helps also build a little bit of bulk for our hackle, make it a little bit of a bigger head. More hackle equals floating better. We just want to create a really nice ramp to walk down with our hackle. And now here, right up towards the eye, I'm going to get this dubbing a little bit tighter, so I'll wet my fingers. And make sure to leave a little bit of room for our tie-off point. Man, that was almost perfect. Okay, let's just do a quick little half hitch right there to solidify it, just so I don't bump my thread off. Okay, I don't have any hackle pliers handy, so hopefully this goes smooth. We're going to start with this first wrap right here. We're going to do a full wrap, working our way down, trying to create these spacings pretty even. If you're using a good hackle, you can always back it off and re-wrap it a little bit. And then right here, as we get to the front, we want to make sure to leave a little bit of room for our tie-off point, which is right through there. I'll go ahead and work my way through, hold a little bit of pressure, pull all this hackle back, do a couple wraps right there in front, and then we'll do a whip finish. One of the only modifications I really do to this is adding rubber legs onto it. That's usually a useful benefit, but you don't really, you don't need it all the time. It really depends on where I'm fishing. I've only been in a couple places where I think that was a deciding factor over having a super productive day and having a not productive day. And I'm just going to build up this and make it a really nice head here. We got a little bit of a straggler right there. It's really bothering me. And the fact I don't have my small wood finish tool is also bothering me. I know it's somewhere. That little midge wood finish tool is amazing. Because this one, as I come around, it just grabs more hackle fibers. Man, look at that alpaca coming out right there. That's cool. Okay, we got that done. We're going to go ahead and trim out our thread. Make sure you use a little bit of head cement or UV resin. I'm just going to put a little dab right here. If it comes out. Hopefully I didn't solidify that. It looks like I might have. Switch to our other one. You don't need much here, because we did do a double whip finish. This is just more to really increase the durability. So that's a bummer that I clogged that one up. Whoa, look at that alpaca, man. That is some hot orange. I don't know if you can see that. It's probably too bright. Actually, you can see how it glows. That's got some cool property to it. And then to keep this wing up, I'm going to take a little bit of this thick resin right here. I'm just going to put a little glob right here. This is something I hardly ever do unless it's going in my own box. Because you shouldn't need it, but I like to just pop that wing up, and then I just kind of push it down like that and really just kind of spread it out. So you can see that's just going to be a nice little fan there for it to land on. I don't know if anybody else does that. So we'll go ahead and cure that up. And that's pretty much a fun little stimulator that doesn't have any flash on it. Kind of boring, huh? But it catches fish, and that's all that matters. So it's got a real slender body, real oversized wing, really kind of a cool color with that pink lemonade hackle. We've got the flash in there on the underbody ribbed. I really wish that we could have got that hackle going the same way as the ribbing, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it, and I don't think it's going to affect the fish. This is going to be posted up to the IG, and I don't want people to say that I got hairs there. So a little trick, just have this little cotter tool right here, and just kind of heat up that hook just a little bit, that hook eye. And I also hate whenever I've got any hairs going in the hook eye, because I'm a guy that struggles tying knots on the river. And so by doing that, I ensure that I always know it's open. I always know it's going to be accessible, and I don't have to worry about anything clogged in there. For my younger days of tying, I actually used to take a bodkin every time when I was done, and I did this method right here just to make sure it was cleaned out. Some of my original flies still, the resin's just dripping all over them. So learn and improve. That's why we're here. That's why I do these live feeds. It's not for you. It's for the questions I get that help me improve as a tyer. And so if you ask questions, leave comments. Why did you do this? Why didn't you do that? That is how I actually get better and think about things differently. So I actually really appreciate constructive criticism, and sometimes I appreciate the guys that are just flat out jerks about it, because I learned from it. It took me a long time to realize that, but this pink lemonade is going to be in my box, crushing it this next year on the dry fly. I'm actually going to be adding some stimulators, hopefully, to my personal box. I usually always give these away, so from now on, I'm tying these for me, and until I get a box of them. So thanks for tuning in. This vise, this is a Cottarelli, I believe is how it's pronounced. It's the T-Rex. It's made for lacquered salmon hooks to protect them. That's why it's got two jaws. I'm just using it because I didn't want to swap out to the single jaw. But you can swap out to the single jaw and a different fork. And what do I recommend for UV resin? Oh shoot, the game is huge now. There's I don't even know how many different brands of UV resin. It really depends on what you're planning to use it for. I am on Semperfli's Pro Team, and I've used their no-tack UV resin. It's pretty much my favorite intermediate thickness resin, because it cures with a no tack, and it also allows me time to work with it. And it doesn't, I found some other resins are a little bit thin, and so it doesn't hold when I shape it. I have a bunch of thicker resins for building up heads. I'm not really a fan of any of those. I don't have a brand preference. For like really thin stuff, this Solres Bone Dry, it comes with a brush applicator, and that's really neat. And I've been trying the Raid Zap Thin. It except for I clogged the head, I guess. But the Thins by Loon, they leave a film on my hands I don't like, and so I've kind of phased that out at this point. But that's just a personal preference. And I think the Solarez seems to be a little bit more durable. Like I can't prick it away with my fingertip. But I'm sure there's a whole bunch of YouTube videos out there on resins and people way more experienced than me in using them. I really like this light by Loon, although it's 10 watts, which apparently cures things too hot. And so most people just recommend a 3 watt. So this is almost overkill, but I love the charge on this, and I love knowing that it really got hit real hard. But I've heard the rumor from certain people that it cures it too fast. So there's a little information on resin, and anybody that's what do you recommend practicing most is a question on YouTube. The way I started was I would pick a pattern that was pretty basic that I fished. For example, I think the first fly I ever tied myself at my house was a pheasant tail nymph, and I bought a hook pack of 14s, 16s, and 18s. I went home and I tied a dozen 12s, or a dozen 14s, a dozen 16s, and a dozen 18s. So that was 36 flies, and they all look like crap. But every 3 flies, I would watch somebody's YouTube tutorial online or read in a book. I have a few fly tying books, and I'd read how they do it, everything. And it was interesting to see how every time I did that with a pattern, you pick up different tricks and tips that apply to so many other patterns that aren't necessarily part of that pattern, but you pick up on those things by watching different tyers do different videos. And so I really recommend doing that. And then once you get a pattern down that you fish, one, you're only buying material for stuff you're going to fish, and 2, you're going to fish these because it's something you tie. Once you get more confident and have 6 to 12 patterns, then what I did is I went back and I tried to tie them from memory. And then I got to the point where I could look at something and just say, that's how it's done. So that's how I did it. That's some advice to someone getting into tying. I don't know if it's correct advice, but don't waste your money on materials or stuff you don't need. Once you get into it more and really enjoy it, then you can invest in different tools and vices and all sorts of things like that. But in my opinion, the tools make it easier. They make it easier to tie flies. Can you use a pair of vice grips from your tool cabinet? Yeah, you can. Can you use sewing thread from the craft store? Yeah. Can you use your wife's crafting scissors? Yeah, but I wouldn't recommend it because then your wife's gonna be pissed because my wife doesn't let me touch those scissors. But if only she knew how sharp these scissors were, then I'd be in trouble. She already gets mad that I steal her hair clips. So anyway, you guys have a good night. Thanks for watching. If you guys missed this, it's going to be on YouTube. It's the same. Just search Sven Diesel, click subscribe, whatever you want. Have a great night. Thanks for being here.